All right, you guys, welcome back into another One Piece video. Today, we got the post-game show for chapter 1153. Just in case this is your first time tuning in to one of these videos, what we like to do here is that we like to go through the previous chapter's comment section and just see what people are talking about. What are the big theories? What are the main takeaways? What are the big opinions out there? I would love to see what you guys said. So, with that being said, hopping over to the top comment from last week, they say, I think I know why Loki fell in love with Lola. He probably trauma bonded with her over their mother issues. That's actually good. I like that. Funny enough, when you said Lola, my mind immediately went to Ida. Like, oh, he's falling in love with Lola because that's his type of woman, because Ida is his type of mother, right? Because right now, Estrid isn't exactly going to win any Mother of the Year awards, but I feel like Ida will be the mom that Loki always wanted, the mom that actually cares about him, which is a recurring theme in One Piece, right? We've had a lot of bad dads in One Piece, and then we've had good dads that find the kids and then, actually raise them up. Like Sanji, great example, Sanji. Sanji was born to Judge. Judge is an awful father. Sanji later found Zeph, and then Zeph turned out to be the perfect father. I think that is what's going to happen to Loki. Loki's going to grow up. Astrid is going to keep on bullying him. Well, she only has a year to live, but she'll bully him for the following year until Ida ends up stepping up and either defending Loki or just full on taking over all of the mom responsibilities for Loki. And maybe because Loki likes Ida so much, chopped women end up becoming his favorite item on the menu. I mean, no shade to Ida, right? I like Ida. I think Ida is a great character. Lola, another great. I love Lola, man. Oh my god, back in Thriller Bark, oh dude, Lola was my shit. But yeah, maybe that right there is what ties it all together. Between the trauma bonding, between the appearance, Lola's got it all. And I just wonder why Lola turned him down. What really put the nail in the coffin? Was it just because it was an arranged marriage and Lola didn't really care for Loki? Was it because of the eyes? Or is there a third reason that we're just not seeing yet? Loki is slowly becoming one of my favorite characters. Elbaph is now Loki's arc. Loki over Usopp. Oh, Usopp. I'm hopeful. I truly am hopeful for Usopp. I am one of the few people out there. The numbers are dwindling every single day, but I am one of those Usopp believers, and I believe, I hope at least, that Usopp will get something in Elbaph. It doesn't have to be power related, right? He doesn't have to become the strongest character in the verse or a character that's teetering amongst the line of the monster trio. No. All I personally want with Usopp is for him to have one moment of bravery. I still think it's going to happen, but I do agree with you, though. I think Loki has been a phenomenal character thus far. When we first met him, I wasn't exactly the biggest fan of him because he just seemed too try-hard, if that's a good way to put it. But now that we're getting the backstory, now that we're seeing his other sides, right, besides the whole Sun God Destruction route that he went in the beginning, I'm really enjoying his character a lot. I think he's well-rounded, and I cannot wait to see what the heck happens with all of his curses, or should I say apparent curses, right? What happened with the natural disasters? How did he get tied to Big Mom? What happens with the horse? How does his mom actually die? Does he even eat the devil fruit? Did he actually set villages on fire? Did he actually set animals loose on the villages to attack innocent civilians? I gotta know. I really gotta know about all that, right? This next one says, I'm not saying this lightly. I think Loki getting thrown down into the realm of the dead and then crawling back as the demon baby he was is probably the hardest hitting panel there ever was in One Piece. I think it's up there. I definitely like the panel where he was crawling up because on one end I was like, oh, that's really sad. But on the other end, it's like, whoa, he's genuinely a monster, right? Like he actually decapitated a bear. He's climbing up the Atom Tree in blisteringly cold conditions. Like, he's a monster. He really is, I'm not saying Estrid was right, but he is an abnormality through and through. And I cannot wait to see what happens next chapter. I gotta know why he covers his eyes. I want to know how he feels about Estrid. Because while we see Estrid as an awful mother, it's not guaranteed that Loki will view her in the same light, right? Because when it comes to abuse, or abusive relationships, you tend to give people a lot of passes the closer they are to you. So Loki having an abusive mom, who's to say that he doesn't still want her around or misses her. Maybe that's why he covers the eyes. I gotta know that relationship, man. You know, Loki is definitely primed up to have an A-tier backstory. Not like that was ever out of the question, right? Not like that's like a brand new thing. So this one from Majin XYZ8535, he says, Fishman Island, Wano, Elbaph share multiple similarities. Their isolationist politics, connections to the ancient kingdom, and two of them having an ancient weapon. I think it makes sense that Elbaph either still has the third ancient weapon in the Heaven Realm, or used to, but Harald gave it to the WG. Oh, that's a good idea. No, I like this a lot. Yeah, Harald might have had Uranus, and then he gave it to the WG as a sign of loyalty, or to make sure that Elbaph doesn't go under Imu's control right away. No, that's brilliant. I didn't think about that. I just always assumed that Imu had it, but no, it could have been here dormant in Elbaph until just recently. That's really good. This would explain why the Holy Knights seem so fond of Harald. Like he really went out of his way to build their trust. This would also tie nicely with Loki, as being the commander of the third ancient weapon, like Shirahoshi, and that would explain the mystery surrounding his character. And yeah, another thing with this too, when we first saw the eyes, and when we realized that he was truly special, I initially went to Ancient Weapon. That was where I first went to, because I did say that it is similar to Shirahoshi, right? Shirahoshi is this miracle birth, a birth that doesn't happen often, and I think Loki is going to be the giant equivalent to Shirahoshi. But we are missing an Ancient Weapon, right? We already have all three accounted for. We have Uranus, we have Pluton, and we have Poseidon. Where the hell does Loki fit into all of this? Like you said, it could make sense if Uranus existed here in the past, but now it doesn't. So they go on. I always thought of the Davy back fight as something Oda kind of forced himself to include in the manga because he wanted to parallel future events. I think the reveal of Imu's reversey-themed powers finally explains what Oda had in mind. Two teams, the Grand Fleet and the WG, each has a captain, Nika and Imu. Captains can steal members of the other crew. Oh, yeah, you can steal members of the other crew, yeah, which would be Domi Reversi, by bringing them onto their side, parentheses, turning into demons, and liberating dash giving them the white form, etc. If I'm right, the Davy back fight was supposed to parallel the final war. A lot to think about here. Majin's kind of cooking, I like that. Alright, so now for their final stanza, they say, I commented once on the parallel between Saiyans. Wait, did I read that right? Saiyans. Okay. You gotta remember, he's a Majin, right? You know, he comes from Dragon Ball Z. All right. I commented once on the parallels between Saiyans and the Elbaph giants, and now Loki, presumably being a very unique, possibly mythical character, and dumped at birth, really reminds me of my favorite Dragon Ball character, Broly. I like that. Wait, if your favorite character is Broly, why are you Majin? Why not Majin Broly, brother? Come on. No, I like that. No, I think that's a big W. You know, since we're talking about Dragon Ball, I've been rewatching it on the side a little bit, dude. Cooler's my guy. You know, I love the Dragon Ball Z movie villains. Cooler's just so amazing. But Broly, he's right there too. I like Z Broly more. You know, I just got to throw it out there because somebody's going to ask, like, oh, do you like Super Broly or Z Broly more? I like Z Broly. Yes, he was essentially a maniac who had no real dialogue or character development, but I liked him. You know, he was kind of epic, man. He was aura personified. As far as this goes, I like all of it, right? I've kind of already said that already. But yeah, the Davy back fight could be a parallel to the Domi Reversi if Luffy and his gang can bring the demons back onto their side. And that'd be a lot of fun. And I wonder if there's any limits to that, because at some point we can't like just simply turn celestial dragons into good people, or holy knights into good people, or Gorosei into good people, right? I feel like there's gonna be like a fine line in the sand, but I think this would be a fun way to bring back Davy back fights without actually bringing back Davy back fights, which I gotta ask now, you know, because people have talked about this theory before in the past in regards to Luffy versus Shanks. But would you guys actually want a true Davy back fight in the series again? And when I say true Davy back fight, I mean one for one, almost like what we got with Foxy. Would you want people to play games and cheat and just be piratey? Or no, do you think the series has come too far and we've kind of left that in the past? Because I'm kind of mixed on that, right? On one hand, I think it would be a lot of fun, but on the other hand, I don't know how people would necessarily enjoy it and receive it in 2025 and beyond. The image of baby Loki clawing himself back up from hell will be one of those One Piece panels I will never forget. The parallels to Luffy continue. Though Luffy was trying to save his friends - family when he climbed Drum Mountain, whereas Loki was trying to get back to a family that didn't even want him, I really hope Loki either reconnects with his brother or finds a new family. Him dying in Elbaph after being alone from the very start would be too sad. No, dude. I'm banking on this right here. He's got to connect with Hajrudin. I don't know how that's going to happen considering the size difference, right? Loki is like 10 times the size of Hajrudin, but I do want them to get along, and, you know, I dream about this pretty often, but I really hope either here in Elbaph or in the future, in the final war, we do get a dual Hakoku sovereignty from Loki and Hajrudin, working hand in hand as true brothers. I hope that happens. And of course, right, even King Harald wanted that. In the one panel we had of King Harald before this chapter and last chapter, it was of King Harald saying, hey, Loki, Hajrudin, save Elbaph. You know, guys, look after Elbaph when I'm gone. So I just hope that happens, man. Loki is currently 63 years old, which is equivalent to 21 in human years. From the moment of his birth, his mother threw him into the underworld. He survived the fall, defeated the giant beast, and crawled back to the sun world. Approximately 45 years ago, he was 18 years old, equivalent to 6 human years, when he challenged Syvduck. 14 years ago, he was 49 years old, equivalent to 16 human years, when he killed King Harald and the royal guards, fled Elbaph, and became a notorious pirate with a bounty of 2.6 billion berries. I think he built his reputation from attacking the Marines and interest of the world government because he hated them all so much. I think it was somewhat because he suspected the WG's involvement in what happened to his father. 6 years ago, he was 57 years old, equivalent to 19 in human years, and that is when he fought Shanks. And Shanks returned him to Elbaph, and Loki's defeat might be the reason Shanks became a Yonko. I don't think it's a coincidence that Shanks became a Yonko the same year he defeated and captured Loki. Yes, Shanks back then was already a very famous pirate with high stature, but capturing Loki could have played a role similar to the Rocky Port incident for Blackbeard's rise. Frankly, Loki is the Broly of... No! What? Okay, wait a minute. No, wait. Is this the same guy? It's not. It's one thing if one person says that Loki is equivalent to Broly from Dragon Ball. It's another thing if two separate people say that. That's actually crazy, brother. What? I mean, okay, now I really gotta sit with this. Is Loki Broly? I don't think so. I mean, I think they have the same aura. You know, Broly would have Conqueror's Haki, man. You know, Loki and Broly, yes. I could even see them fighting similarly, right? Loki's over here tanking blasts, you know, just walking through everything, just going on a rampage. I can see it, but I would have never made the connection if you guys didn't say it, though. All right, so going on, because we're not done with their comment, they say, I will not be surprised if Oda revealing that Loki learned to use Advanced Conqueror's Haki by himself when he was a child, and this is the reason Rocks stabbed him with the sword, realizing that Loki isn't an ordinary giant child. He's a monster in a child's form, unstoppable except by force. I like this. I mean, everything you listed here, it's pretty much factual, huh? And it's nice because you even included the theory that, you know, Loki's downfall was the reason why Shanks rose as a Yonko. Yeah, this all seems good. I love that, dude. Nice breakdown of Loki's entire timeline. The only thing you're really missing is Lola. To be fair, though, I don't think we have, like, an accurate timeline on Lola and Loki, but I think that'd be nice to add in here. But yeah, overall, W. A big W. All right, next comment. They say, rejected by his mother, rejected by his brother, rejected by his people, rejected by his family, rejected by his idol, forced to kill his father, but by the grace of the sun god Luffy, he was accepted without questions asked. Yep, I've seen people throwing around this on Twitter, and yeah, it's good. I love it. You know, Luffy just, you know, non-conditionally just said, hey, Loki, join my crew, dude. Come on, I can't wait to see a fight. I bet he has not heard that before. This one says, notice how after Harald visited Fishman Island in Wano, the WG immediately started blocking him from further diplomatic activity. They caught on to him making those moves, knowing that he was unknowingly connecting Elbaph between other major players that would ultimately serve to fight with Nika in the final war. We know that on the mural, we saw Poseidon, an ancient giant, and Wano samurai. Imu caught on to this, and the WG found his diplomatic actions to be an immediate threat that had to be put down. Otherwise, if Nika were to return and Harald was still alive, every country he gained as an ally would immediately be ready to fight against Emu and the WG in the final war, since Harald already turned them into his allies. That is true. That is true. I mean, the thing with Harald too, I do wonder how this is going to come into play, but Harald does end up working for the world government. He's potentially playing as a double agent, but either way, he does end up going to them. I wonder why. I wonder if he had the same mindset as Roger, where Roger hit Laughtail, and his main statement, you know, minus the whole laughing segment, he said that he arrived there too early. Or was that Rayleigh? No, it was Rayleigh. Rayleigh said they arrived there too early. I wonder if Harald was like, oh, I'm connecting all these nations, and this is great because this is going to lead to the world government's demise. But just like Rayleigh said, he's too early. You know, Nika isn't around yet. You know, Luffy hasn't even been born. Hell, is Dragon even born yet? Let me see. I think Dragon is like 58 years old. One Piece Dragon age. Oh my god, Dragon isn't even born yet. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, so right now, Dragon is 55 years old. So yeah, Harald, man, great intentions, great actions, but a little bit too soon. All right, so this comment says, oh yeah, I saw this one earlier. They say some people miss this, but there's a detail worth pointing out that Harald actually visited Wano. You can tell by the landscape and the people carrying samurai swords. Kozaburo Shimotsuki left Wano after 15 years, and it's possible that during the time Harald was there, he helped them out with navigation and sailing. I like the theory. I did respond to him because I actually did not see this. When I was making this review video, I did not notice that he went to Wano. I saw the rocks and I was like, okay, that's kind of familiar, but that's it. That is where I drew the line and I was like, moving on, right? But I did go back and I saw the rocks again and I was like, yes, this is definitely Wano. And then of course, in the next panel where you see King Harald hold up the ship and talk about the Polar Star, it's really hard to see it at first glance, but if you look closely at the people on that ship, they do have like little lines across their body, which of course, as this guy pointed out, should be samurai swords, which I think is insane. What a crazy detail, man. I didn't even notice that. Not many noticed that one. Ida basically explained Big Mom's body size when she said that some people aren't traditional giants, but like her, some people from random islands are just born big, and Elbaph'S giants have given them a bad reputation. Elbaph'S giants aren't even allowed to marry types of giants because they're not true giants. 2. Alcohol Village is actually Sake Village, like in Binks Sake, so that might be where Binks is from. And 3. Loki's eyes mirror the real legend of Sigurd, Snake in the Eye, who was born to Princess Astrid and could see the future. Wait a minute. I actually did not know that. Sigurd, Snake in the Eye. Crazy name, by the way. Snake in the Eye, right? Not Snake Eyes, but Snake in the Eye. All right, so based off of what I'm looking at right now, it says that the mark in his eye was believed to symbolize destiny and possibly suggest a connection to the prophecy, which we already know is a thing in One Piece, right? I mean, we saw Loki in the damn mural, right? So that's not super shocking. But yeah, not bad, not bad. Saul was also from the South Blue. It is possible that he is from the same island as Ida. It's now confirmed that the blood-soaked serpent mentioned in Little Garden is the Red Line, the only thing Dorian Brogy's Hakaku sovereignty cannot destroy. Yep, we talked about this in the video. One thing I forgot to mention, though, is that means that Dorian Brogy tried to destroy the Red Line at some point, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like, they saw the Red Line, and they said, hey, brother, let's attack that wall. Like, how did that happen? You know, do the giants know something about the red serpent, the blood-soaked serpent that we don't know about? Was there a reason why Dorian Brogy had to test that out? I am curious. This one says, that art of baby Loki climbing up the Atom Tree gave me straight Hunter x Hunter vibes. That was probably the most visceral and detailed image Oda has ever drawn. This one says, could Mosa be Ida? That's what I immediately thought of after reading this chapter, and if I'm not missing anything, I think it could be possible. I would love that. All right, what does the reply below say? I got the same feeling instantly, and I haven't thought of anything to counter it yet. Yeah, so we've talked about this idea before in a previous video. I don't think it's bad. I think it would be kind of cool if Ida was that hidden character all along, and if Hardin's mom was talking to Loki. I think it'd be really weird if Loki ever brings it up saying, hey, Hardin, I've been talking to your mom on the side, you know, knowing how the relationship has been thus far. Really odd. But overall, I like it, right? Because it is the mom that Loki should have had, the mom that Loki actually deserves. But based on what I've heard around the Japanese community, when it comes to the way Ida talks, she does not talk like Mosa. The way they speak, the words they use, they don't exactly line up. In fact, it's actually odd because they say that Estrid actually speaks more like Mosa than Ida does. But of course, Ida has the personality, Estrid has the speech. So if you were to combine those two characters, you would have Mosa. One thing to take note of in regards to Ida and how she doesn't exactly speak like Mosa is the fact that this flashback takes place 63 years ago. So there is a very valid chance that Ida simply changes how she speaks over time, and she does end up fitting the Mosa persona. But right now, it's not exactly lining up one-to-one. I still think it's a really good idea. There's not anything to super disprove it minus that. But yeah, I am curious to see where this is going to go. And also, I think it would be really interesting if we met more characters as we move on. Also, wait, one more thing I didn't think about. Loki said that he's never met Mosa before. They've never seen each other. So if Ida sees Loki next chapter, that could be something that would disprove this theory. Unless Mosa-Ida is lying to Loki saying, oh, I'm a brand new person, but in reality it's just Ida, which would be kind of weird. I don't know why she'd do that. But yeah, that is something we have to keep on the lookout for next chapter. If Ida and Loki link up, then the chances of Mosa being Ida do drop significantly. King Harald is proof that simping is the way if you want a prosperous country. He's just like Sai for real. Finally, somebody understands. Thank you, man. I've been on Team Estrid for a while now, man, and let me tell you, it's good to have another person in my corner. This one says, when I first saw Loki's mother, I thought maybe that... No way, what? 2 in a row, huh? I thought that maybe this is the female version of Sai. Look at this. It's not photoshopped. Back to back. I did not put these in any particular order. It's going off of YouTube, and they put these back to back. That's crazy. Now, we know why Loki hides his eyes with bandages. The guy has the eyes of Sauron, yeah? And I've talked about this too, but I'm curious. Why does he still hide his eyes today? Is he afraid that other people will be afraid of him? Does he not like his eyes? I've seen people saying that he maybe gouged his eyes out. Or is it because of his mom? You know, maybe he heard that his mom hated his eyes, so he hid them, and he still hides them to this very day because he misses dear old mommy. Sai is the only guy who can keep a straight face while being able to put a lot of energy into just speaking. It's like his movements, voice inflection, dynamic background, and abrupt cuts after topics that I appreciate as a student in film and audio production. All right, brother. I love the compliment. I love the compliment, but let me tell you, I'm nowhere close to a film major or audiophile, brother. I'm just a guy in his bedroom. I appreciate, though, you know, that means a lot. That means a lot. This one says, in the era when Harald traveled around the world 70 years ago, a time when the rough seas made communication between islands extremely difficult, we see the special mountains near Wano Island. Crucially, the presence of people carrying katanas on the ship carried by Harald provides evidence that he visited Wano itself. As the narrator says, Harald was teaching other nations about Elbaph'S advanced navigational skills. Therefore, this visit to Wano might have been... Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, might have been the reason why Shimotsuki Kozaburo and his crew immigrated from Wano to the East Blue 55 years ago. Yep, and that is exactly what the comment up there said as well. I like that. I like that people are also putting the pieces together individually. That's always cool to see, right? Like, people are reaching the same conclusions from different angles. Well, they came from the same angle, but you get what I mean. You get what I mean. Loki getting thrown off the mountain reminds me a lot of Hera throwing Hephaestus down Mount Olympus. Maybe some useful theories can come from that. All right, so I'm not well versed in Greek-Roman mythology, so let's see what the comments say here. Hephaestus was also married to Aphrodite, but she didn't like him back and cheated on him with his brother Ares. Maybe some Lola connection there. Well, hey, Lola did marry somebody else. Lola is currently off the market, which is kind of sad, right? I wonder if Loki reads the newspapers and he sees that Lola is currently married to Big Hand Gotti. Is that his name, Big Hand Gotti? Or did I just make that up? It's either Big Hand or Phantom Gun. One Piece Gotti. His epithet is Hitman Gotti. Okay. He's a hitman, like an assassin. Wait, who's Big Hands then? I did not make that up. There is a guy out there named Big Hands on Beige's crew. Is it Vito? I thought Vito was Phantom Gun. Let me see here. Vito is Monster Gun Vito. Not exactly Phantom Gun. No, I swear, there's a Big Hand somebody. Wait, what? Big Hand One Piece epithet. Did I just make that up? What's going on here? Big Hand. All right, guys, I think I'm just cooked. There's not a single character in One Piece called Big Hand. No. Okay. Look at Vito. Vito has really big hands. His epithet is not Big Hand Vito, but maybe that is a nickname I gave him when I first saw him. Also, I got Phantom Gun correct. Phantom Gun is Vito's nickname in the Viz. So in the Viz, Vito is called Phantom Gun, but of course, in Japanese, he's actually called the Monster Gun. But he also has big hands. What the heck? Dude, Beige's crew, brother. Beige's crew, man. What a bunch of characters. They don't really have any abilities, huh? They just got guns? Not even like sea stone guns. They just got regular guns. Brother, you put Beige against a Logia, man, his whole crew is cooked. My God. Wait, does Beige have hockey? Okay, now I'm going down like a random train. Does Beige have hockey? We don't see him utilize hockey in the anime or manga, but maybe in a Vivre card he gets revealed to have hockey? No! Yeah, he's never stated to have hockey at all. Are you serious? No hockey on Beige? Yeah, no hockey. Okay, I just like did a whole skim through his wiki. Damn, dude! Beige doesn't have basic armament? No way. No. That's gonna be fixed. If we see Beige again in the future, I would be shocked if he doesn't have basic armament and observation. No. Don't say it ain't so. The 5 Beige fans out there are gonna go ballistic when they hear that. I think we're already seeing it with how Loki is helping Elbaph, or about to, against the Holy Knights, much like how Hephaestus helped the gods versus the Titans. Ooh, that's nice. And this one says, also, the myth of Hercules struggling, I think they meant strangling. Yeah, strangling the snakes Hera sent to kill him as a baby makes a parallel with baby Loki downing the wolf. That is good. And here's the thing too, but I do not think the Loki abuse is done quite yet, right? The mother tried to kill Loki once. I think there's going to be a second attempt. There's no way there isn't, right? Until King Harald comes home and sees Loki for himself, I think Astrid is going to continue her venture of killing baby Loki. Loki, in a couple of chapters down the line, you're not dealing with the average Elbaph warrior anymore. I am the prince of all giants. Brother, is this another Dragon Ball reference? 3? In all my years of doing these comment videos, hey, I'm not complaining. You know, as a big Dragon Ball fan myself, I still play Dokkan Battle. Been playing since the 2nd anniversary. If you want to see my box, I had made a video over on the Syvduck YouTube channel, so you can check that out. But yes, another DBZ reference, because this is Vegeta, right? You're not dealing with the average Saiyan warrior anymore. I am the prince of all Saiyans. Yeah, this is Vegeta coded, man. What the heck? Vegeta, Broly, who's next? Who are we gonna compare Loki to next, huh? Freaking Turles? Raditz? Kakarot? Who? Loki is probably going to be a combination of the 3 children of the mythological Loki, Fenrir, Jormungandr, and Hel. The Fenrir parallel is the killing of Harald-Odin. The Snake Eyes are the Jormungandr parallel, and Hel is the ruler of the underworld, which would be represented by Loki being literally casted down to the underworld by his mother. Brother! Some good stuff. This is why I love reading through the comments. I mean, I already knew about the Fenrir stuff, right? I've talked about Fenrir before. We know about Jormungandr. I did not know about this 3rd one right here. So hearing this, man, it's nice, you know? I love reading comments like this because we learn more, right? We're all learning together. You see this? Earlier, I talked about it earlier, but I did not know about the Wano thing. You know, I did not really put 2 and 2 together and saw that Harald did visit Wano. But here we have it, man. We're all learning together. And I think that's the most important thing, right? You know, we all can only do so much. We can all only analyze so much. And that is why the community that we have here, I mean, not even just here, right? I don't want to like exclude the rest of One Piece YouTube, but, you know, just One Piece in general, like the community that it has fostered, it's nice. You know, we're all brainstorming in one gigantic circle. This one says, I'm 100% sure that Mosa is Ida. Mosa means shaggy. Ida is shaggy in the circus flashback. Is she? I guess I never looked, huh? I saw that she had the ancient giant horns, but was she actually very hairy? Let me see here. Yes. Yeah, they gave her like this weird cape. Yeah, they gave her like a fur cape. What the heck is that? Why'd they do that to her? I get why they put the horns on her, because the horns are scary, right? The horns, it's like, ooh, God, I don't want to mess with that giant. But the fur, that is interesting. That is really interesting. If she is in the Hell Realm, it's cold there, and she could be wearing fur. She is from Samuanai, which means it's not Cold Island. Also, she has the narrative weight being Loki's stepmom. Yeah, when it comes to Mosa's Ida, I'm not 100%. I'm more like, I think my last percentage was 70. I brought it down a little bit because of what we talked about earlier, right, with the speech. But I'm more like 65% sure it's Ida. I feel like out of all the potential candidates listed thus far, right? Jarl, Yorl, Ange, the Owl, Shirahoshi, Morley. I feel like there's like one or two more that I haven't listed there. But out of all of the options we've talked about and theorized about beforehand, I do think Ida has the highest percentage in my mind, at least. I'm not 100 yet, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. We gotta see how they interact next chapter. We got to see if there's like a whole connection. Does Ida see Loki? Will that disprove it? Would Ida lie about that and take on the fake persona of Mosa? And also, if Loki does meet Ida, will he cook up a certain nickname for her? How does he respect her? Because if Loki does respect Ida, if he gives her a certain honorific, then it would be kind of odd that he changes that and later calls her Mosa. Unless Ida is pretending to be Mosa and doesn't want to tell Loki her real identity, which would also be kind of odd. So there are still things we have to work through. But like I said, Ida is the top candidate as of, what day is it? What is that, June? Oh my God, it's July. It's the 4th of July. She is the top candidate as of the 4th of July. This comment says, that Loki origin story is heartbreaking on a whole new level. After Kuma, then Loki, I wonder how far Oda will go to make us feel all the sads. I hope this isn't it. I hope that future backstories only get sadder and sadder. I'm like a guy that has cried too many tears. It's hard to pull one of those bastards out of me nowadays. The last time a tear showed up when reading One Piece was during the Kuma flashback where Kuma was running and then he tripped and then he picked himself back up. I thought that was beautiful. That did bring a tear to my eye. Loki's backstory, though, not yet. I needed to get 3 times worse. Estrid, I'm gonna need you to lock in, brother. Or sister. Brother, I've never really said sister, huh? I need you to lock in, sister. I need you to just, I need you to hit him a little bit more. Make me feel bad for Loki. I've had this lingering suspicion that Mosa is possibly Hajrudin's mom. Another Ida is Mosa theory. After this chapter, I feel more confident. I don't recall Oda saying she died. She did not die yet. All right, according to Oda, Ida is still, in that questionable territory, right? We know that Estrid dies, but as far as Ida goes, we have no clue. Seeing how much love she has to give and wanting the boys to get along makes me feel like she's the only person on Elbaph that would still give Loki a chance besides Jarl. What started as me thinking it would be a hilarious, ironic twist might actually be true. I respect it. Baby Loki is looking like a chimera ant. Now we got Hunter x Hunter references, huh? All we need now is a Naruto reference. Hey, cross my fingers. Somebody mention Kishimoto. I like how Oda continues to add more Norse references. Me too. It makes me think that Harald will rip out his horns for knowledge, like how Odin ripped out his eye. That's a good one. I guess in this instance, we could say that instead of knowledge, it would be for knowledge within the world government. Like maybe for Harald to show his loyalty to Emu and the Holy Knights, he has to rip off his horns. Maybe that's the payment. And then he would get knowledge out of it, right? He'd learn why the world government is intercepting him whenever he's trying to go on his diplomatic missions. I think that would be huge. I understand why Syvduck needed to go as far as to stick a sword in Kid Loki to beat him. He simply didn't want to admit it but he needed to go a little bit more farther than he wanted to beat a kid. You know, that is also true, right? Seeing how durable Kid Loki is, surviving the fall down into the underworld, yeah. You know, stabbing Loki in the back with a sword, hey, he can tank it, man. I mean, you could probably stab baby Loki right now and he'd be fine. You know, tanking that fall is no small feat by any means. We cannot underplay that whatsoever. And like I said, you know, he is maybe 5 minutes old when Estrid actually dropped him too. Right, fresh out the womb, just cut the umbilical cord, probably didn't even clean him yet, and he tanked it. Absolutely insane. Loki, being cursed and evil, is really just a self-fulfilling prophecy. How do you expect this kid to grow up to be a decent person when his entire people are against him from day one? I think we might see Loki undergo a very similar transformation as we saw from King Harald in this chapter. I don't know if it'll be up to a love interest like Ida, parentheses, I'm very interested to see what his relationship to Lola looked like, or maybe if Luffy showing him true compassion for what might be the first time in his life, aside from maybe Mosa question mark, will spark a change of heart in him. On the other hand, I don't think he'll just give up on idolizing rocks, so I might just be spitting straight doo-doo here. What is this emoji? Oh, it's the detective emoji. Yeah, no, I think you're cooking. I think Loki will undergo some sort of personality change, but I don't think that would undermine him idolizing rocks. So this one says, Saint Sai of the Norona family. You mentioned this on your podcast with Parvision, that Loki might actually crawl up the Yggdrasil, and now it's canon. That is true. You know, funny, because I don't even claim that as a W. We did talk about this exactly, but in good faith, I cannot claim that as a theory W, because when me and Par talk about One Piece, we talk about One Piece for 4 hours. The amount of theories and ideas and verbal hoo-ha that we throw out there is insurmountable. At some point, something that me and Par will say will end up becoming true. You know, me and Par cook up thousands of theories about each and every chapter because we're joking around, you know, we're tossing ideas. But just because one of them comes true doesn't mean that I can ignore the other 999 that do not come true. So yes, it's a W in a way, and I appreciate you calling that out. But at the same time, you know, I can't wear that with a badge of honor, you know? It's not like I dedicated a video to it, but it is funny that that happened. It is pretty damn cool. And also, thank you for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate the view, man. This one says, Ponty352, this really paints Estrid as one of those bratty teens who never grew up and just fold when things aren't convenient. I still find her actions of abandoning Loki appalling. Yes, it is pretty bad across the board. This one says, maybe the prophecy was like this. The Prince of Elbaph will kill Harald, and Hajrudin, Domi Reversi, killed Harald. Loki took the blame to save his brother from the guilt. What if Mosa is actually Ida? Okay, so we talked about the Mosa Ida stuff, so we're not going to repeat that. This is interesting. You know, funny enough, everybody thought it was really weird that Hajrudin did not get called to the throne room, but Loki and Jarl did. The main reason why I saw people saying that Hajrudin didn't get called is because he's not pureblood. But what if he did get called? What if Hajrudin is in that throne room and Hajrudin is the one that killed King Harald? I think that'd be insane. I think that'd be really... It would make for a really crazy plot twist, but I don't know yet. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, personally, I feel like Hajrudin will play a very significant role here in Elbaph, and I do think that Hajrudin, you know, unlike Usopp, right? Usopp just needs a lot of narrative importance. He needs, like, narrative flair. But Hajrudin, I do think, needs an actual physical upgrade. Right now, Hajrudin is, like, right here. Loki's up here. They're brothers. You know, I want them to work side by side, and that will only happen if Hajrudin gets to, like, right here at least, right? I'm not saying Hajrudin has to be stronger. He just has to be not as weak. So what if Hajrudin does have a Domi Reversi? Or what if Hajrudin has, like, this alter ego or, you know, special ability that he doesn't know about? That'd be crazy. You know, obviously, current day, I think a very popular theory is that Hajrudin will get Domi Reversi'd, because if he does get Domi Reversi'd, he'd be the same size as Loki, putting them on an equal playing field. But what if Hajrudin already had that? What if Hajrudin was present during that day? It's tough, because I feel like if he was present, Loki would have said something already. Like, hey, Hajrudin, you killed Dad, not me! Right? I feel like if Hajrudin was there, Loki would have said something by now, but it's One Piece, man. You never know. You never know where Oda's gonna go with that stuff. I love how Japanese people name things. Samuanai literally means it's not cold. Yeah, that's fun. It also reminds me of, you know, when I think about names like that, I immediately go back to Fukuro from CP9 and CP0 and how he does like the hoot hoot like an owl every now and then. And Fukuro literally just means owl. So I think that is a lot of fun. The wordplay in Japanese is cool. Can't really do that with English, unfortunately. This one says, so, at no point in Hajrudin's life did he even surpass 5-minute-old Loki. That's crazy. So if you're wondering what the timestamp is for, it's when I talked about the fact that Hajrudin was essentially saying goodbye and apologizing to his crew because they all thought they were going to die when they fell from the Sun Realm all the way down into the underworld. You know, they saw that fall and they were like, yep, we're cooked. Whereas Loki, as a 5-minute-year-old baby, tanked it. You know, I would like to imagine Hajrudin would have survived, but he just would have been heavily injured. Possibly more injured than baby Loki. Last comment, they say, I love how Loki gets catered to, having access to the castle yet thrown away and whatnot, but that dirty blood Hajrudin had a mother and father's love and acts so soft. I love how you threw in dirty blood Hajrudin, huh? No wonder Luffy is obsessed with him. Dude was born a legend. I've been Yamato for Straw Hat Crew ever since her character was introduced, and now I would much rather have Loki join. Oh, dude, I lost to Nakama today. I can't believe this. His fruit could allow him to shrink and grow. He could be the perfect opponent for San Juan Wolf when the Straw Hats throw down with the Blackbeard Pirates. Okay, I agree with you. Loki would make a really great Nakama. You know, if we had to compare Loki to the Roger Pirates, Loki would be Luffy's version of Douglas Bullet. Because remember, Douglas Bullet was a loose cannon. You know, that guy was a straight killer on the Roger Pirates. Loki could be that exact same type of character, but for Luffy's gang. I think that could work out really well. I mean, even looking at Rox's crew, right? Rox had a bunch of hotheads on that crew. Loki could be Luffy's hothead. I think it's all there. And I do think his chances of joining the crew jump significantly if his ability allows him to shrink and grow. But my counter argument would be, why not both? You know, why can't we have Loki and Yamato? I don't know. I like Yamato, man. Despite how awful her cover page stories have been, I'm still a Yamato fan. You know, that's just how it is, man. I look at the crew right now and it's not balanced. You know, we got a straight sausage fest going on amongst the Straw Hat Pirates. You know, we got like 8 guys and 2 girls. I say we need 1 more girl. So that is why I want Yamato there. We need, you know, a female heavy hitter. And I think Yamato is that character. Loki could also fit, but obviously, you know, he's a guy, but he's also a giant. I think that'd be a big W. I also want Bonnie to join. You know, Bonnie's another great option, right? The Roger Pirates had freaking Shanks and Buggy as cabin boys. I think Luffy inviting Bonnie to the crew, giant W. That'll be beautiful. But it's tough because the more characters we add to the Straw Hats, the less focus some Straw Hats will actually get. So, you know, we can't have Yamato and Loki. We can't have Bonnie on there as well. I think we will just end up picking 1 character, and I just don't know who yet, man. We have a lot of great picks. The only pick I dislike would be Carrot. Thankfully, the Carrot for Nakama train died down a lot after Wano. Carrot, I thought, was just not a great choice. Another choice that I wouldn't exactly like, this is going to be a hot take, I don't want Vivi to join. Yes, Vivi is a Nakama member, right? You know, we can't dispute that. Vivi is Nakama, but she's not Nakama, right? She's not sailing with the crew. I don't want her to sail with the crew. I think in the final war, she'd be perfectly fine to sail alongside us and, you know, with the Grand Fleet, but I don't think I want her on the crew and on the Thousand Sunny. Like I said, hot take, but that's mine right there. And I'm sure you guys have your own thoughts about this too, right? If you had to rank all of the Straw Hat Nakama candidates, like Nakama candidates, how would you tier list it? Right now, I'd have Yamato 1, Loki 2, Bonnie 3, Vivi 4, Carrot 5. Yeah, even though I just like slandered Vivi for like the past minute and a half, I do still like her more than Carrot. Carrot adds nothing. At least for Vivi, I think she adds something. Carrot, all she got is Sulong, man. But with that being said, enough ranting for one day. Thank you guys for joining me in this video. I really freaking appreciate it. Thank you for spending your time here, man. Thank you for all the comments as well. You know, we couldn't make this video without you guys. I say that every time. It's cheesy, but it's true. But with that being said, though, y'all, thank you so much for being here again. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Stay tuned for that. It'll be the poll video, of course. And yeah, stay safe, y'all. Until then. Peace out, brother.